Darren Rovell from Cllct, and I am here with Joe Berton, aka Hayden Sidd Finch himself. 40 years to the day. Joe, it's a pleasure to have you and talk about your alter ego. Let's start at the very beginning. How the hell did this happen?
Well, it's good being with you, Darren. This goes back to my friendship with the photographer, Lane Stewart. So Lane and I got to know each other. Oh, I think in 1977, he came to Chicago to do a story on hobbies, building model cars and ships and planes. And I got involved with that because I build miniatures, model soldiers. And it became a hobby that Lane got interested in. So whenever he did another Chicago shoot, uh, Lane, being a staff photographer, got to hire his own assistants, so I could help him out on any of the local Chicago shoots. And as we got to know each other better, he knew my love of baseball. So um, anything relating to baseball that Lane would be assigned, uh, he might run past me, and I would try to help out when I could.
That's amazing. Okay, so what's how does it go? Like, this is like a CIA type secret. How does the conversation go? Take me through it.
Well, Lane calls me up and says, "I've got a baseball story. This is about the New York Mets of 1985, right?" So I'm a Chicagoan, the '84 Cubs that were coming off that.
Oh,
No, the
you just
playoff.
went through the Leon Durham Gatorade
Yeah,
glove fiasco against the Padres.
all of that. I had bleachers tickets for that first game, and Sutcliffe hit a home run, and great. The second game they win. Then of course that's Wrigley Field without lights, so they've got to go out to San Diego, and you know the rest of the story. So in that off season, the Mets signed Gary Carter. So the Cubs and Mets are in the same division. A lot of people forget about that. So Lane calls up my love of baseball. He goes, "Look, I've got a spring training story. The New York Mets." I get excited. He goes, "Yeah, it's about this guy's got a great fastball, 160 some mile an hour fastball. All he's got is a French horn and a food bowl and a rug." And I'm thinking, this is too crazy. But uh, I go, "Well, it is the Mets. Yeah, I'm in." He goes, "You sure? You sure you can do this story? We're covering this guy." "Yeah, I'm in." He goes, "Well, get yourself a French horn and a pair of work boots and a food bowl. You've got to be the guy. Come to St. Petersburg."
Now, hold on. Are you a practical joker? Are you I mean, your schedule's wide open to do this?
Well, at that time, I was teaching middle school art. So, and where spring training falls, and whether that's spring break, typically we get a couple of personal days. So I knew I could swing a couple of days off of work. So uh, I just, uh, we just had no clue what a big deal it was going to be. So uh, when,
You go down like 2 weeks before to take the photos, right?
right. So I have to go back to school. I talked my music teacher into lending me a French horn. A teacher I work with, his brother works construction because I've got pretty big feet, and so does his brother. So I
What it
found
was size 14?
size 14. So I got a size 14 pair of work boots to bring down. I go over to the local Pier 1 and buy a wooden bowl and a what could sub as a Tibetan rug. So that's my
Nothing made out of yak fur.
no, that's basically it. So uh, but Lane tells me a bit more about the story that Plimpton's got this idea of doing a April Fool's column. We thought it just might be a column. So he shares the printout that Plimpton shared with him, a bit of my background, uh, playing the French horn at such a level. I'm deciding whether to play that for a living or possibly go into baseball because I've discovered I've got a tremendous ability to throw a baseball very, very fast. Learned from Buddhist monks from my stay in Tibet. So the written word gets more and more crazy, right? So March 15th is a Friday. I tell Lane I can come down there on the 16th, early morning. We get down there and I meet some of the Mets and Nelson Doubleday and Jay Horowitz, who was the PR guy for the Mets at the time. He's our in. So we're talking about different scenarios and what to do, thinking we might get a picture or two in the magazine. But we
And
talk
then it
ourselves.
turns out to be 11 pages.
I think they even did more than that, counting the double spread,
14,
14,
14.
something like this. So, but we charm and talk our way in a variety of different scenarios with the younger players. Uh, the task was to try and stay low keyed, but still accomplish the job at hand. So Mel Stoudemire was great. So there's pictures of Mel and I talking, and but the young guys at that time, Jesse Orozco, even Ron Darling, John Christensen, Dave Cochran, Ron Reynolds, the backup catcher, was fantastic to work with. So we're staying away from the big guys. We just don't want anybody to notice really that we're around.
Now, did Jay tell you like not to talk? Like, are you like a quiet, like, what was your acting responsibilities?
I was dressed as the role and just walking around with a French horn in my hand. So the players, I think the players were tossed off a little bit, thinking I was just some crazy friend of Nelson Doubleday. Why would he be down here? Seeing the people that could cooperate, Lenny Dykstra and Kevin Mitchell were great. We could get them to do things with us too. And Ron Reynolds, blowing on his hand, getting his, you know, cooling off his hand because the fastball was so hot.
Do you think the 168 was a little bit ambitious for Plimpton? I mean, I feel like that's like the only thing that screws this up.
That's what my point was to Lane. And I'd said, if we did this 110, 120, people would really believe it. But he wanted to stick with something so absolutely absurd.
Yeah, I felt like if Nolan Ryan was at like 106, 168 was like just other things could be believed.
Yeah, I think the fastest sports related thing might have been a tennis serve. I think some of those tennis serves were recorded maybe 115, possibly 120, but there's nothing like 168.
So it'd be one thing if the April Fool's joke happened from afar, but then the Mets actually invite you back, like as the frenzy is happening. Like that's the craziest thing. Like they are going all in. This is a Major League Baseball team, for God's sakes.
Yeah, Lane calls me up. Uh, like you mentioned, I think we finished by the 18th or so. Uh, but their whole touch on reality, there's part of the story that Sid spent a semester at Harvard. So Lane actually, we leave St. Petersburg together. I go back home to teach. Lane goes to Harvard to take a picture of my French horn in the Harvard dorm room. So that's authentic. Uh, Probably a week goes by and Lane has to show his selects to Mark Mulvoy, the managing editor, and George Plimpton in the next couple of days. And they love what we shot, all the different scenarios we got into it. And Lane included some of the vacation pictures of uh, he and his wife and I and some Egyptian friends were in Cairo all together. So there's pictures of me on a camel that Lane put into the images he's showing Mulvoy and Plimpton. Plimpton can't believe what we've done, what we've accomplished, the different scenarios we've talked ourselves into. So he basically goes back and expands on the story. And then at that time, Lane calls me up and says, "Look, they love the stuff. They're going to use your bare feet for an opener. They've got you on the beach for the double spread. Uh, Pictures of the tarp and the players."
Is at any point is anyone at Sports Illustrated concerned that Sports Illustrated is like the bastion of journalism? And while there's a little clue that no one will actually figure out, it doesn't really say anywhere this is an April Fool's joke. Did anyone have any hesitancy there?
I think there was nervousness. Plimpton told me later the extreme nervousness on his part if anyone was really going to fall for the joke. And and I think when you remember that it's a joke, I mean, no one was harmed in this. We weren't trying to gain any money from it, unlike a hoax, which can be, deceitful, and so forth. This was just a joke on everybody we wanted to pull off, and the fact that they expanded on it, knocked out advertisers. I think Mark and George ran with it. Lane got a great kick out of what a big deal it was going to be. But he did give me a heads up on it when he called and said, he started telling me the various pictures that they were going to use and a warning that this indeed was going to be a big deal. So typically, I think the magazine closed on a Sunday. By Monday, some of the first issues hit the Time Life building. So Life, which was being published at the time, um, Lane's wife was a senior editor at Life magazine, so she got a call from the sports editor at Life, upset because you know why didn't Lane tell us about Sidd? How can I get in touch with Sidd? So by Tuesday, the public has started seeing the article. Senator Daniel Moynihan from New York calls the Sports Illustrated and do you stand by the story? Well, Senator, Sports Illustrated stands by everything they print. So the staff really didn't get much of a word that this is this is a big joke. that uh, finally, I think it might have been possibly Wednesday. They tracked Plimpton down because he was doing some social event in the southeast, and then he's playing it straight. And they're calling Mel Stoudemire up. The reporters are tracking Mel down. We're trying to find Sidd. Where is he? And Mel was just such a straight face as saying, it's 8 in the morning. He should have been here at 5. Sidd's already gone back to his trailer. He's sleeping already. So he's
And
already
and
done his
and then
work.
you and then at what point are you actually down there?
Well, then they call me up. The magazine hits that week. And now the Mets realize how big of a deal it is. And uh, at that time, even the players know why we were hanging out and doing these stories. So the Mets are all in it and just love it. So Jay calls me up on that. I think it was the Saturday, saying, "Can you come down tomorrow? We can you come down Monday's April 1st? We'd like you to do a Sidd Finch day, the Sidd Finch decision. Plimpton's all in on it. He's going to write some statement for you to read. Uh, come down and be part of it." And at that time, Jay, I'd love to do it. I'll bring the French horn and everything, but this time I'd really like to keep the uniform. Okay, Sidd. Okay, Sidd. So I got down there. They had French horn players and a press conference to read. Then they sent Lane back down, this time to cover Sidd's return to St. Petersburg. So Lane was assigned the story once again. And Plimpton wrote up a statement about uh, I was not going to play baseball that season unless the Mets really needed me because I found the game to be too full of deception. Instead, I was going to take up the singular game of golf, which had more of a Zen quality to it. And then we're
What,
walking.
what was the deal with the shirts? Because I have one of those shirts, the Sidd Finch decision. Who made those?
That was done by the St. Petersburg. They printed up, I think, 2,000 of them. They called and wanted me to be part of it. And I said, well, I'd love to be part of that, but can you get me a bunch of T-shirts for my kids at school? They'd love that too. So
Were you ever compensated?
they, yeah, with at that time, yeah,
$55
yeah,
or something, right?
T-shirts.
Something insane, right?
Sports Illustrated gave me whatever the photo fee was for the double page spreads and things. So
Amazing.
whatever the cut rate was.
Okay, so when do you meet your wife? What year?
I met her the Christmas time of that year, 1985. So,
How many dates in does it take to get to you're not just an art teacher?
well, that whole summer was kind of crazy because the Mets would the Mets when they come to Chicago, they would leave tickets for Sidd at the desk, and I'd be sitting with the Mets moms and dads or relatives or wives. So, and being in Wrigley Field, that's rather difficult because you get singled out being parts of the Mets crowd. Uh, so I really had to come true with the story. I think it was the spring of that next year. Uh, the Cubs opening day is going to happen. And opening day in Chicago was really kind of crazy. And so I'm walking down Michigan Avenue, close to where my wife works. She's head of European painting at the Art Institute. So there's a carload of kids going by, and they see me and they start yelling out, hey, Sid, and pointing. And my wife said, what's all that about? I go, well, let me tell you an interesting story. So
That's how she found out. That's
people
amazing.
yelling. Yeah, people yelling.
That's incredible. Now over the years, I've seen on eBay you have signed a couple items. Joe Burton, aka Sidd Finch, signed a bunch of items over the years. And
Yeah,
and
the most interesting one, I think, I did a roast George Plimpton at the St. Regis Hotel in New York, and they wanted. So Sports Illustrated called me up. Can you do this roast with Plimpton? We're trying to get athletes that he's written about to be part of the event. And I said, yeah, but I'm not a real athlete. He goes, no, but you're the most recent one. Can you do the event? So I'm at the roast. I'm with Floyd Patterson and his wife, Jerry Cheevers from the Bruins and his wife, Nick Petrosani from the Lions and his wife, and Sid. So being the most
who the
recent,
hell are you?
they all loved it because they knew the story. So instead of being an unknown, I was just the most recent person that George had written about.
It's amazing that George Plimpton, who was like the voluntary journalist, like created, you became the guy, and then you had this kind of career.
Yeah, and I enjoyed meeting him. I think one of the real benefits I got out of it was getting to know him over the years. And when he would come to Chicago, we would get together. And the times I would get to New York, if he was in town, we would meet up. If my wife had an opening at the Metropolitan Museum, so George and I went over for that. That was fun. And of course, I'd always be bringing out the latest Plimpton book for him to sign to me. And uh, I treasure the Sidd Finch articles that he signed for me. Those are great.
Joe Burton, aka Sidd Finch, happy anniversary, and thanks for joining us.
Good being a part of it, sharing the day with you. Thank you so much, Darren.